Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Elliot and Jason Show. We are recording earlier in the day than we usually do, so it's early for me at least, an early morning session. So great to see all of you again. I know it's been a while. Jason's been out and about. I've been out and about, so finally we're able to connect with each other. So Jason and I have been, talking about the last couple weeks, through text and email about retirement. And I know in the past sessions, past episodes, we talked about the American dream and finances and those type of things impacting people. But the one thing that is a really interesting topic to talk about these days is retirement. And looking at, what are the options for people to retire? What is the motivation for people to want to retire early? Um, I know for myself, I've been wanting to retire, and early retirement has been on my radar for a while. But it's not as easy as it seems, and there's things that you have to work out, and saving money and looking at what other things can come through to help you out. So it's not an easy goal to obtain these days. But we wanted to talk today about retirement options out there, what options have been in the past, um, and go from there. Jason, you want to talk a little bit about your perspective on retirement, and then you can hand it over me.
Sure. Thanks, Eliot. I think we're in an environment where there's a lot of uncertainty and risk all the way across the board, whether you're talking about your 401k investments, real estate, inflation, political uncertainty. We just don't know what our financial situation is going to be 6 months from now. You could think that you're in great financial shape, and then all of a sudden your spouse tells you they want a divorce, and you have to pay alimony for the next however many years, which is totally going to change your financial situation. Or you can own a condo in Florida, and all of a sudden you get hit with these unbelievable association fees that you weren't planning for that could even bankrupt you. With the stock market lately, it seems like more like a casino than actual investments. So I think one of the things that we have to really think about is if we lost our job, or if we got divorced, or if we got hit with these association fees, what are we going to do to survive? And I think there are things that people can do to give themselves options in the future. Think about what you're good at. How could you turn a hobby into a potential business? Like for me, I like learning foreign languages. And so recently I enrolled in a course where I'm going to be certified to teach English as a second language. That's something that I could do in the future and make a little bit of money. Maybe it's not going to seem like a lot of money compared to what I've been making for most of the last 20 years, but we all have to think about survival, and that's something that's been on my mind that I want to pursue.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jason. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to adjusting and pivoting. We have these grandiose ideas as when we entered the workforce decades ago. I don't want to age myself, but decades ago, working for a long time and having these ideas of working for, 20, 30, maybe less than 40 years, and getting to a point that you have enough money saved up and that you can just retire and not have to worry about things. I started working since I was 12. I was started delivering newspapers, 12 years old. Didn't matter the weather. I just was thinking as part of my retirement, it's like, man, I've been working for a long time, like over 40 years. I've been pounding the pavement and trying to make money. Even as a kid, my mom told me, she's like, you're gonna have to help. We're not paying all your college, so you're gonna have to start saving up now. She told me at 10 years old, like, you got to look at what jobs you can be doing. So when the newspaper route came open, I immediately applied, and I worked that route for 2 years, and I actually expanded my route to two other routes. So rain, snow, and shine, I woke up every day when I had to deliver that paper, and delivered it through snow. I remember riding my 10 speed bike through the snow with the newspapers in my basket, delivering the papers, wiping out, having to get back up and still continue to do my route. So for me, it's like I've been working for a long time. And there is a sense of fatigue that I have now. I wanted when I would start when I was in my late 30s, I was like, I would really love to retire early. Like in my mid 50s would be awesome. Now I'm in my mid 50s, just turned 53 in April, and I am nowhere near the have the ability to retire. And I've been saving a lot. I learned about emergency fund savings like in my early 40s. Like you need to have not only your 401k and your Roth IRAs, but you need to, and not only your savings account, but you need to have another account that maybe is a low interest account that has some sort of added to it through time, but with interest. But I started saving up at my emergency fund in my early 40s. Like you said, things happen. I lost my job in 2017. I was in a situation of being underemployed. That emergency fund was exhausted by the end of the year. My savings account was exhausted. I started contemplating tapping into my Roth IRAs and my 401ks. So it's like even no matter what you do to even try to prepare, world things happen in your life, and you're like, well, what do I do now? So I've kind of accepted the fact that now being close to my, early 50s, that we're going to probably have to work full time for at least the next 12 to 15 years to save up enough money to keep adding into my Social Security, which, we can talk more about that. I don't know the the state of what that's going to be in the next 12 to 15 years.
Right.
But I think to your point, Jason, it's like we need to find ways and we have to be creative and we have to pivot and our goals that have to be adjusted. um Speaking about that, what are your thoughts in terms of what the future holds for options in retirement, like the funds that they talk about, like Social Security? Do you have any thoughts about that in terms of dependency on others, and maybe that we have to be
Sure.
independent?
I think about it all the time. I listen to people talk on TV about, you know, how we spend so much money on entitlements, meaning Social Security and I guess Medicare as well, and how that is, the largest contributor to our budget deficit. I don't like that word entitlement at all. I mean, we've been paying into Social Security our, whole working lives, and it's there. We've been paying into it, that fund, so that it will be there when we retire. And it seems like the people always talking about, how we need to cut entitlements are the people that have millions of dollars in the bank and they can survive off the interest on their millions of dollars. But for the vast majority of Americans, we need Social Security and we need Social Security to be raised to keep up with inflation. So that is something that definitely bothers me. The other thing is, I don't know that, real estate is even feasible for everybody like it used to be. I think before the American dream was to buy a home and watch the inflation escalator take your home, to a great price that if you ever had to sell it one day, you're going to, have incredible gains. I don't think, since 2008, the last financial crisis, I don't think real estate is guaranteed anymore. We've seen the real estate market crash before, and it seems like houses right now are just so unaffordable that it seems like we could have another bubble and somebody could buy a home, with high interest rates, mortgage rates, and we could have another housing crash and have a serious financial crisis where that real estate investment is going to end up being more of a liability than a valuable investment.
Yeah, and to speak to that point, I think it's especially challenging for those individuals that are younger professionals that don't have the credit built up, and it's hard for them to, get mortgages. And for me, I mean, I was, you know, grateful that I've had the ability to build good credit even though I've had some challenging financial times, and I have been able to purchase a couple homes, which has helped to add to my emergency funds as well as feed into my Roth IRAs that I have. So I feel blessed in that regard, but there are so many millions and millions of younger professionals that are desperate and struggling to try to get into the real estate market, and they are forced to be renting and paying high rents to landlords and not able to save up money. So like you said, that is becoming less of an option for investing in the future. I've seen it as an investment. This is I now own my third house, and I plan on keeping it for at least the next 15 to 20 years, pay it off, and then see where I'm at. But I really want to make sure that I build in the value before I consider selling it. My two other sales of my properties are kind of a emergency last minute, like, oh, I need to get out of this type of deal. Thank goodness that the market was at the time that I was able to build up some equity. But yeah, I really feel for the younger, professionals, even beyond real estate. It's just like they are having difficulty saving up their money. Like I said, they're paying extra money to rent, and cost of living is expensive, so they're not able to save up. So it's like, how are those individuals, and if they have families, especially the newer families, how are they going to be able to save up for their children for college education? So the way that which the economy is evolving and making it more of a struggle across the board really makes it more challenging to even consider retirement. But I think if people, like you said, look at the options that are available and start saving now, or figure out how they can pivot, I think is good. Um, Jason, do you have any other thoughts related to retirement?
Yeah, I think, to kind of along the lines of the real estate market being so unaffordable, I think there are some options that are more affordable. Just for example, there's in Florida, for example, there's over 55 manufactured home communities where you can buy a manufactured home for, say, $40,000 and then pay, $600 a month for the rent for the lot. I mean, that's much more affordable, I think, for a lot of people than, maybe, spending over $2,000 a month in rent. Or, if you don't own that home now and the market is just so outrageous that you can't afford the prices of to buy a house anymore, or you can't afford the mortgage rates, that is one option, a manufactured home. Another option is living overseas, because the US dollar goes so much further in some countries. Now, that's not for everybody. I'm in Georgia right now, the country of Georgia, where real estate's a lot cheaper, rent's a lot cheaper than America. But I don't think every American would enjoy living overseas. I think you have to go in with the attitude that I need to learn the language of the country that I'm in. I need to, kind of get rid of whatever maybe attitudes I have back in America where the customers are always right, and be a little bit more humble. Um, but, again, that's not going to be for everybody. But if you like to travel, I would say, start learning other languages now, and prepare for that, because it's much more affordable in other countries.
Yeah, and I I've been admiring that you've been able to do that and travel and take that risk, and something that I might consider doing down the road myself. Even like I've had sights of going to move to like Canada, or look at New Zealand or Australia, these other places that I think are kind of cool. Um, but again, it takes that planning and concerted effort to look into things, and making sure you're taking into account things like the language barriers and overcoming those, the cultural barriers, and making sure that you're learning about where you want to move to. So, but it. I think you and I have talked about that it's not always for everyone. That everyone's like, well, let's just jump ship and go to another country. But there are challenges with that. So I think, like you said, researching, looking into it, and seeing like what are the impacts are. So Jason, we're at time. Do you have any closing thoughts before we?
No, I think This is a fascinating subject that we're going to be talking about for a long, long time. It's going to affect everybody.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks, Jason, for your time today, and everyone else. Hope you have a wonderful Friday and have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.